Hi everyone, Mr. Taxi here, and I just wanted to review some of the changes that have been revealed for Anna so far, and I wanted to give my thoughts on how to best apply these moves, or at least theory craft on what could potentially be possible, or at least what I plan to explore with Anna Williams. So first let's talk about forward forward 2. So with forward forward 2, it has a lot of properties, and you'll notice this about a lot of Anna's moves, is that they just cover a lot of options. So forward forward 2 itself is +4 on block. It does 6 chip damage. It's a high. It has massive range, and it's a homing move. As well, on hit, there is a guaranteed follow-up, and you can likely go for mix-ups after, or hard 50-50s, Oki, stuff like that. Another feature of the move that I think is pretty important is that the range in which the move is blocked is where Anna remains. So if you block the move at range 0, she's going to be at range 0 +4. But if you block the move at tip range, she's going to be tip range +4 still, right? So that's pretty important, I think, because now you can kind of use the move in a more multi-purpose way, right? So you do have the, pretty obvious option of just like running straight at your opponent, doing forward forward 2, trying to catch their homing, or, even just trying to catch them blocking, since it does do 6 chip damage, and since you are +4, right? If you want to start your aggression that way, you can do that, and then you'll be range 0, and, time for mix-ups. Now, alternatively, because the move does have that additional property of maintaining the range where the move is blocked, you can use the move as a keep out tool to control the space in front of you. And it does have several properties that lend to this. So first are its frames. It's 17 to 18 frames, so first, 17 frames is unseeable, so there's no way that your opponent is going to be able to react to this move. They're just going to be guessing on when the move is going to come out. You'll also notice that it has a 2-frame active window, so it exists on the screen for 2 frames. So there is always the potential for your opponent to walk into the second frame, or get counter hit by the second frame, or sidestep and then block the second frame. It's also a full homing move, so it's going to be able to control the entire space in front of you in the horizontal dimension. Additionally, it also has insanely long range. It looks like, based off what I'm seeing, without the initial dash, about range 3 to control the space in front of you. It also does 6 chip damage, and I think that's pretty noteworthy in the keep out department, because that's kind of the whole goal, is to establish this lead and get them away from you while you maintain that lead. So continuous 6 chip damage I think is pretty nice. Now, it is a high attack, so there are inherent weaknesses like power crush moves, as well as it, ducking the high crushes. As well, you can also counter hit her out of the move, since it is 17 to 18 frames, so even though it's unseeable, lots of moves definitely will beat her out if your opponent makes that read. So with that in mind, I would definitely be on the lookout for how my opponent deals with and tries to counter your use of forward forward 2. And then you can adapt your gameplay based off of the information that you've collected using forward forward 2. The next move I want to talk about is Anna's 1+2. 1+2 is a homing mid that is +1 on block. Comes out at I16 to I18, so that's a 3-frame active window. Is a counter hit heat engager, since on counter hit it's +14. On normal hit, it's only +9, and it also does chip damage. So ideally, you're going to use this to fish for counter hits, but at the wall, you could use it aggressively just because it is +1 on block. And some of the weaknesses of the move no longer exist. So for example, there's no pushback when the wall is to your opponent's back, both on hit and on block. And also, it becomes more rewarding on counter hit, since you do get a full wall splat. Just like a lot of Anna's other moves, I do consider this to be a multi-purpose move. Since it is a 16-frame move, you can definitely land some counter hits, either when you put your opponent at -6 or more, or if they put themselves at -6 or more, you can directly frame trap them. And then as well, if your opponent goes for sidesteps, And since it's a homing move, this is going to track them and potentially counter hit them. And then I think the move truly shines when you start implementing movement to land counter hits, aggressively forward dashing or back dashing to bait them into you. Similar to Steve players with back 1 or down forward 2. Brian players also use forward 4 in a similar fashion. It actually does have very similar frames to it. Both are I-16 to I-18, and they're both plus on block. So pretty similar. The reward's very different, but I imagine very similar use of the move. Now, keep in mind that this move is actually a full homing move, so I personally consider that to be, worth the trade-off of the reward. Anna historically has struggled both with risk reward as well as with tracking, so this is a very safe move that has homing, so does cover a lot of those old weaknesses. Now, I have heard other Ana players critique this move, probably because the last iteration of the move was a little bit difficult to use for those weaknesses that I mentioned earlier. But I think with proper approach of this tool, I think it's really strong. I think this is more of a keep out defensive tool where you want people to walk into you. It does have that pushback, so you can maintain your space afterwards. I definitely consider it more of that space control type of tool. The next noteworthy move I want to go over is quarter circle forward 1. So we haven't seen Ana with a crouch dash yet, so depending on if she actually does have a crouch dash movement, will change the frames of this move, because it'll make it more or less bufferable. So if she doesn't have the crouch dash anymore, then the fastest it's going to come out is at 13 frames, which will be really, really, really strong. And then if she does still have the crouch dash, then it's going to come out at the very fastest at 15 frames. Now, either way, there is a 5-frame active window for this move. To put that in perspective for you, electrics have a 2-frame active window, so this would be kind of like stacking 2 electric side by side and then adding half of an electric and saying, this is the move that you're working with. So oftentimes when I use this move, I really feel like I can contest anything just because that 5-frame active window is this high priority hitbox. This move is also a heat engager, and if you're already in heat, you can burn the rest of your meter to make it a launcher. Otherwise, this move just knocks down on hit. They can roll back to avoid any type of follow-up. On block, the move is +6. It also does 6 chip damage, and there's significant pushback once the move is blocked. Even though you're +6, because of that pushback, it's going to be difficult to follow up with your range 0 pokes aggressively, but Ana does have a lot of long range moves for you to mix up your opponent, as well she does have some of those space control tools that we mentioned earlier. When the wall is to your opponent's back, she likely won't have that pushback issue, so you can take full advantage of those +6 frames. So initially I did think this move was nerfed because it did lose that counter hit launching property, and you can't just use this move to cheat your way into range 0 anymore. But after thinking about it, I think this move just went through a massive style change. It might actually even be buffed. Because it's a heat engager, it gets massive reward even without the counter hit property, so I think that's a buff, just because you don't need your opponent to press a button to make that mistake. And so even though it doesn't put you range 0 anymore, it does do 6 chip damage, and you are still +6. So you do get rewarded even when the move is blocked, just like in the past game when it left you range 0. The mix-up game after is just different because of that space, but I do think it actually leaves you safer. I honestly think this is one of Ana's best moves, so I think it's going to be important to master this move, to know how, when, why, where to use it. The next thing I want to go over is Ana's debuff mechanic. So far, Ana has a couple of moves that lead into a projectile, and if you block the projectile or get hit by it, then the debuff is applied to your character. The debuff causes you to take chip damage whenever you block a move, regardless of whether Ana is in heat or not. If she is in heat, then the debuff actually stacks, so you take a lot of chip damage. The debuff ends once you make Ana block an attack or get hit by one of your attacks. Currently, I think the main ways of applying the debuff are going to be 1, either with a launcher and combo that ends in the rocket launcher to apply the debuff. Another effective way of applying the debuff will be after a heat engager, since you do have access to up forward 3, which does have that heat follow-up. And then the final way that I would recommend applying the debuff would be by using down back 2 as a 50-50 mix-up tool. It's a safe 15 frame move. On hit, it will transition into pleasure time at +8, and then the rocket launcher itself is an 8 frame move, so you get to apply the debuff for free. Alright, now that we've finished briefly going over the debuff mechanic, I wanted to switch over to Ana's jab strings. Now keep in mind that Ana's attacks are considerably more effective when she has heat activated, as well as when she has the debuff mechanic on, because that means whether you're blocking or not, you are taking damage. She does have a generic jab that's +1 on block, and all of these extensions are going to come from that one jab. The second part of the follow-up is simply 1-2. 1-2 is -3 on block, so still have a lot of access to options to sidestep, counter hit, and so forth. After that, she has 1-2-1. It's pretty much the same frames as 1-2 on block. So from here, she has 1-2-1-4. Now, we don't know the frames on it yet, but in the past it was a +7 on block high. Now, Ana also did get a mid follow-up with 1-2-1-2. This follow-up, when not in heat, is -14 on block. However, when she is in heat, it's going to do massive chip damage, and it's also +4 on block because of the extension she gains in heat, similar to Nina's gunshots. So I think these jabs are very strong for Ana, and they take advantage of the chip system and the heat system pretty well. I think the best use for taking advantage of the strings actually stems from the first 3 parts of the move rather than finishing the extension, because the extension is where the risk comes from. Now with the initial 1 and 1-2, these are very foundational tools that you can use to manage the space in front of you. They're also great for setting a reference on what your available options are. They kind of give you that orientation and help establish a meta between you and your opponent to gather information and adjust and make those reads accordingly. Now 1-2-1 itself is going to definitely be negative on block, but because of the extension, it's going to have mental frame advantage. Because your opponent's going to be afraid to press into the mid follow-up that's going to wall splat, that's going to do chip damage, that's going to be plus, right? They're going to be afraid to attack into the high extension that's a launcher or a wall splat, right? Additionally, they're gonna guess between, okay, am I gonna hold back to deal with the mid, or am I gonna duck the high, right? So there's just a level of mind game because of the extension that your opponent's gonna be aware of. With that mental frame advantage, because you know your opponent's gonna hold back, you can start implementing other strategies other than just finishing the string for reward. For example, what I'm gonna be really excited to do is I'm gonna do 1-2-1 into 1-2-1 again, right? So I'm just gonna cycle it back into itself, and I'm gonna force them to respond to it. And then you can start implementing other moves to take advantage of their hesitation, such as 1-2-1 down forward 4, or 1-2-1 QCF1 at the wall. And this would allow you to turn your mental frame advantage into real frame advantage. Now, keep in mind that by itself, this is a pretty solid mix-up strategy, but you also have to take into account and factor the debuff mechanic, as well as heat and the chip damage that you're doing from some of your moves. Alright, so the next series of moves I want to talk about is her down forward 1 and their extensions. So she does have a generic down forward 1. It's 13 frames, -1 on block. So just like jab, it's a very foundational tool. Its fast speed allows you to check opponents in front of you, and it's just a solid, safe tool to gather information on your opponent. Now, there is that weakness of tracking, but Ana does have a lot of strong tracking homing moves this game, so don't be afraid to use that and to mix it up. And you can also use movement to make the move itself track. The move is also +5 on hit. Again, -1 on block. So the frames of this move, the speed in which it comes out, and its properties on hit and on block, frame-wise still give options to sidestep or backdash effectively, or go for counter hit setups to contest your opponent, or to cycle into your other strong pokes like jabs or down forward 4, or even another down forward 1 series. So ultimately what I'm getting at is that this is a very versatile move, just the down forward 1 itself, and it'll allow you to play a very strong and fast-paced neutral game. So the next part of the series is down forward 1-2. So the high extension can't be ducked if you block the first part of the move, down forward 1. It is -5 on block and only +2 on hit. So with these frames, you don't really have as much option to move around or counter hit as safely as you do when you're -1 or +5. But even so, this move is pretty nutty. So first of all, there is that extension with down forward 1, 2, 3, or down forward 1, 2, 4. With down forward 1, 2, 3, that's likely going to be an unsafe launcher that's a mid, and then with down forward 1, 2, 4, it's going to be a safe on block high. When the 4 lands on counter hit, she gets a heat engager, or a wall splat since it is +14. From down forward 1-2, Anna can also transition into her hammer chance stance. It does change the frames of the move on block and on hit, so instead of it being -5, it actually becomes 0 on block, and on hit it becomes +7. I think the scariest part about that aren't actually the options that come from the stance. They are decently threatening, and they do make you want to press a button to get counter hit by the down forward 1, 2, 3, or down forward 1, 2, 4. But I think the most toxic part is that there is no tell on the frame change, right? So if she does down forward 1, 2 forward and immediately presses a button, you don't see the stance transition. There's no way to tell animation-wise if she's going to be -5 on block or 0 on block. Likewise, there's no way to tell if she's going to be +2 on hit or if she's going to be +7. So that's pretty strong as far as ambiguity goes, but additionally, right, we did also mention that there is that extension with down forward 1, 2, 3, or down forward 1, 2, 4, and that's going to lead to mental frame advantage, which we talked about earlier, so you can definitely take advantage of that with your opponent. Another thing to note is that when Anna does go into hammer chance stance, she can cancel it into full crouch, but by doing so, you're pretty much giving up all the frames from the stance, right? Because you are canceling it. Again, I did want to reiterate that the strength of the down forward 1, 2 series doesn't come from finishing the string, but instead comes from the fact that it's such a strong foundational poking tool that allows you to gain knowledge about your opponent and what they like to do to counteract you. And it also safely allows Anna to set up scenarios to take advantage of those reads. So overall, I'm pretty excited to see what Anna can do in this iteration of the game. I can see her definitely being played as a hard 50-50 character, high risk, super fast paced, just going forward with those mix-ups. I can definitely see that being very effective. As well, because of some of those long range tools, as well as some of the counter hit and the keep out and the chip damage, I can also see her being played very defensively. So those are just some of the key moves that I wanted to discuss with Anna before she comes out. Couldn't help but theorycraft and analyze some of those moves and try to share that with you all. Hope you all get better from that analysis. If not, that's okay, because I'm also using this as a sort of track record of my own growth and development, so just wanting to keep track of those ideas. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and share. You know the deal. Till next time, bye!